accordingly.
Well, good morning, everybody. I'll call the trustees and others to come to order. I will remind you all that we are streaming live on video and audio, so I want to ask trustees and remind trustees and staff, please speak directly into the microphone when speaking so that everyone who's watching us out in the virtual world can hear and participate. Trustee Achtenberg, would you please convene the Committee on Collective Bargaining, please?
Thank you, Chair Monville. The Committee on Collective Bargaining will please come to order. Unless there are any objections, the minutes of the July meeting will stand approved. Seeing no objections, they are deemed approved. We have 5 action items for you to consider in the open session. They'll be presented by Vice Chancellor Lori Lamb, and it's subsequent to that presentation that we will have the public speakers to address the committee. So, Lori Lamb, please.
Thank you, Chair Achtenberg. I'm pleased to present 5 collective bargaining agreements to the Committee on Collective Bargaining for ratification. The Committee on Collective Bargaining has the authority to act on behalf of the Board of Trustees to comply with the requirements of the Higher Education Employer-Employee Relations Act, including negotiation and ratification of memoranda of understanding with the unions. I just wanted to clarify that for all parties involved. The first collective bargaining agreement is between the CSU and the California State University Employees Union. This agreement covers healthcare support, operations support, clerical and administrative support, and technical support employees. The agreement is for a 3-year term ending on June 30th, 2017. Compensation pools are in the amount of 3% in the first year and 2% in the second and third years of the agreement. Compensation is subject to change if there were to be something higher negotiated with the California Faculty Association in years 2 and 3. There were other significant language changes in the contract as well. We are confident that it's in the best interest of the CSU to ratify this agreement. The second collective bargaining agreement is between the CSU and the Academic Professionals of California. This agreement covers employees such as student services, advisors, financial aid officers, and counselors. The agreement is for a 3-year term ending on June 30th, 2017, related to compensation and benefits. Compensation pools are in the amount of 3% in the first year and 2% in the second and third years of the agreement. Compensation is subject to change if there were to be something higher negotiated with the California Faculty Association in years 2 and 3. Again, we are confident that it's in the best interest of the CSU to ratify this agreement. The third contract is between the CSU and the State Employees Trades Council. This agreement covers our building trades. The agreement is for a 1-year term ending on June 30th of 2015, related to compensation and benefits only. Compensation is in the amount of 3% for that year. We are confident that ratifying this agreement is in the best interest of the CSU. The fourth agreement is between the CSU and the California Faculty Association. This agreement covers our instructional faculty, coaches, counselors, and librarians. The agreement is for a 3-year term ending on June 30th, 2017. The compensation pool is 3% for the first year and is subject to bargaining for the second and third years. There were substantial language improvements negotiated that improved the ability of the campuses to administer this contract. We are confident that this contract is in the best interest of the CSU. The final agreement is between the CSU and the International Union of Operating Engineers. This agreement covers the skilled trade workers at the California Maritime Academy. Compensation pools are in the amount of 3% in the first year and 2% in the second and third years of the agreement. Compensation is subject to change if there were to be something higher negotiated with the California Faculty Association in years 2 and 3. This is a 3-year agreement, and we are again confident that ratifying this agreement is in the best interest of the CSU. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor. After we hear from the speakers who wish to address the committee, we will take action on these items, and we'll take action separately on each item. But before we do, we'll hear from the speakers. Pat Gant of the president of CSU EU, Mike Geck, and then Loretta Seva Ayasti. I'm very sorry. Seva Ayatsi. Pat, if you would.
Good morning, and thank you, Trustee Achtenberg, committee members, trustees, campus presidents, guests, and brothers and sisters. I come here today to, first of all, thank the university for a process that resulted in an agreement that you hopefully will ratify in a few minutes. I believe that the best measure of our relationship between the CSU EU and the CSU administration is our ability to reach agreement. No matter what the issue or what the challenge, our ability to sit down and work through the tough issues to get to an agreement and have something to move forward together on is really a measure of our ability to be successful in anything we do. It transfers into almost every part of our life on the campus, and so we can solve problems together. And I'm hopeful that you will ratify. We have many issues to look at in the future where we will have to negotiate, consult, or meet on, but I am encouraged that we can find the medium or the middle ground where we can have an agreement and keep moving forward because it's in the best interest of the CSU and the students we serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Mike Geck.
Yeah, I want to reiterate what Pat said. The process that yielded this contract was very enlightening for me. It was my first time to go through a full contract process. I want to thank the people on the other side of the table, John Swarbrick and his team, and our bargaining team. It wasn't always fun. It wasn't always pretty, but I think the outcome speaks for itself. Our members ratified that contract by 98%. I think that's an overwhelming statement that they are happy with what the outcome was. I'm sure every one of them would have liked more and feels they deserve more, but this is what we have. So on that topic of more, and I want to thank the people that are actually paying attention over here and the ones that aren't looking at their notepads and their laptops, because I really am addressing you at this point. Today's a great day. We're all happy, but tomorrow's a new day, and it's your turn. I know I mentioned this last time, and I'm reiterating it today. I know there are some plans out there to address the lag in salary that we've seen over the years, especially the one over at Dominguez Hills that was put out a few months ago. And I know that the statement was made that we're waiting for this contract to be ratified. When our members read that and saw that, they were literally doing the happy dance. So we're hoping that that moves forward here soon, and I'd love to sing the praises of President Hagan. And I know that there's been some mention at San Diego State and a few other campuses, so we'd love to see what you guys come up with. We're here to work with you, to help you in any way we can. We do have a vested interest not only in our members, but in the CSU, in higher education in California, and our future, our kids. I have 4 of them myself. I want to see them be able to go to the CSU someday or wherever they would like to go, but I want it to be there for them, and I want it to be within reach, and I want them to be serviced by employees that are happy with their jobs, that love the CSU, because our working conditions are student learning conditions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Loretta?
Thank you. My name Loretta Sevaatasi. I know it's a very difficult name to pronounce, and I always have to spell it, but no offense taken. I have to live with it all the time. But anyways, I just want to reiterate also the prior comments, but I also want to add, and I know that Pat and Mike and all of our members also want to thank Chancellor White for making the decision and asking the board to support his decision to defer some much needed maintenance for the campuses and use that funding for a compensation pool so that our members get 3% this year. And so thank you. I wanted to make mention of that as well. But as Mike said too, and that's my point number two, is now it's up to the campuses. We hope that, because our members told us on the team that there were two things that were important to them, was to get more money in the form of compensation, but also to protect their benefits. And so now we have a contract which we hope you will ratify in a few minutes, but then the next step is to increase or set aside funding at campus level for IRPs, whether they're management initiated or staff initiated, but also what Mike had also mentioned, one of our campuses tried to do, if there are any campus-wide funding for campus-wide IRPs, that'll also be great. So please, chapter president or campus presidents, please keep that in mind for next year and the upcoming years of our contract. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tessie Reese, Mike Chavez, and Reggie Keys, please.
Good morning. I'm Tessie Reese, the Unit 2 Chair for CSUAU, and I work at San Diego State. I'm an LVN too. Same comments everyone else has said. Great process moving forward. Thank you to John and his team and Chancellor White as well for setting aside these funds. Because when we started the program or started this bargaining session, we knew compensation wasn't there. So it's a tribute to the Chancellor, a tribute to his team on the bargaining, and tribute to our team and our employees that we represent. Hopefully you will ratify this contract, and it's a step in the right direction. What I'd like to end with is, as we move forward, there has been some comments about the campuses also setting aside funding for the employees. It's great that the Chancellor's office is setting aside funds for this, but it also has to start at the campuses. Campuses have to start funding and taking pride and putting that pride and that talk forward in the means of compensation. We have a huge issue with market inequity, especially in Unit 2 and in some of the other units, and I'll let those units address it. But as far as Unit 2, we know there's a market issue, and we know there's an inequity there. Hopefully, moving forward, we can address those issues, and those issues come from when the campuses hire. The campuses have the ability to hire at any point of those salary ranges. So moving forward, I hope that we can address these issues, because we can't address market at the bargaining table. It doesn't happen. Funding has to come forward from the campuses because you hire us. You hire us at a salary range that, yes, we accept, but you need to move forward on that, and hopefully you will look at that and try to address those in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mike Chavez?
Ladies and gentlemen of the Board of Trustees, campus presidents, distinguished guests, my name is Michael Chavez. I am the CSU EU statewide chair representing Unit 5. I'm here to speak about the collective bargaining issue in front of you. Hopefully you'll be able to ratify this contract that's before you. I know we have ratified our part, and we are moving in the right direction, but we still have more work that needs to be done, specifically IRPs and the market equity issue. We not only encourage our members to apply for them, but also the campus presidents to take the bulls by the horn and lead their campuses to addressing the lack of IRPs or being accepted in market equity issues at their campus level. We, the union, are here to work together to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Reggie Keys?
My name is Reggie Keys from Cal Poly Pomona. A lot has already been said. Today I'm here to celebrate and enjoy, and tomorrow is back to business as usual. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Indeed. Rocky Sanchez, Rich McGee, and Susan Smith, please.
Rocky Sanchez, Unit 7 Vice Chair from Cal Poly Pomona. I just want to say to the presidents, to the Chancellor, to the Board of Trustees, that please ratify this contract. This is a good contract. And also to acknowledge and say thank you to John Schwarzbreck and his team, and also to my bargaining team members for a good contract. This is a start. It's a very good start, but just a start in regards to compensation for the staff. I hope moving forward that all the presidents put money aside and really embrace the IRP program, and because we have marketing issues, and not try to sidestep that by having their HR departments use outside marketing issues in order to sidestep the IRP process like they do at my campus. They need to look in terms of all of our employees for CSUEU and embrace that, set aside money, and reward us for all the hard work that we do to make our campuses look great to the outside, to welcoming new students, prospective students, and work to get our current students graduated in a timely manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Rich McGee?
Good morning, Rich McGee, Chair of Bargaining Unit 9, CSU San Bernardino. I'd like to thank Chancellor White and John Swarbrick and his team for the spirit of professionalism that was shown in bargaining this year. I've been involved in collective bargaining. This is my 6th or 7th full contract, and this is the first time that we've actually never had to sit and be insulted by the CSU. They've actually told me in the past, if you don't like working for us, we're not going to pay you anymore. Take your money and leave. We don't need you. People will want your job. We can hire you with a snap of a finger. It's been not fun, but it's been professional, and now I look forward to continuing the dialogue so we can both sides best serve our customers, the students, to the best of our abilities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Susan Smith?
Susan Smith, Vice Chair, Bargaining Unit 9, Cal State Fullerton. Go Titans. Titans roll. This was my first cycle on the bargaining team, and it's been quite the learning experience, and it's been an example of what can be accomplished in the CSU when we work together, and that the system as a whole is changing, but change is gradual. One of the things I first said on my first speech was when I looked around the room, especially at campus presidents, I only saw one female president, and today when I look out I see 4, and that makes me very happy. It is an example of change that occurs. Bargaining was interesting, and a labor relations manager from the Chancellor's office at a recent event made a comment to me that this contract or this potential contract is our contract. It's not just the CSUEU's contract, it's the CSU's contract too. And it's an example of how we work together in a partnership. Sometimes the partnership was a bit contentious, and we sometimes had a few debates back and forth, which I will share one with you. Mr. Swarbrick and I had a trading of quotes one day where he relates a story, and I don't completely know the story, but the gist of it is you can't get there from here. And this contract is an example of we can get somewhere when we set our minds together and move forward together. And I will tell you that one of my closing quotes was a Dr. Philism, that the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. And if this agreement is any predictor of past behavior, then I think we have good things to look forward to. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Alessandra Brewer, Andy Merrifield, and Lillian Tays, please.
And so now you've heard from most of my team from CSUEU, the bargaining team. As the chair of the bargaining team, I am extremely proud to have had these 8 amazing chairs and vice chairs, their dedication, their knowledge, everything they brought, every single one of them brought an amazing amount to the table to help get this done. And so I thank them particularly and publicly here. I also thank you, Chancellor White, the trustees, John Swarbrick, your team, Renee Castro, and the HR people from the campuses. You see before you a document that's not hugely thick. Everybody's been concentrating on the compensation, but every page in there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and a lot of work from both sides. So I also add my thanks to your team for the amount of work you did making this happen too. So Thank you, everyone. I know there was more, but I think that's enough. I'll pass it on to the next union. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Andy Merrifield?
Good morning. My name is Andy Merrifield. I'm a professor of political science at Sonoma State, and I'm the chair of the California Faculty Association's bargaining team. We too, CFA has ratified the contract, and we have every hope and expectation that the CSU will also ratify the collective bargaining agreement today. The contract was ratified overwhelmingly, about 9-1, and it was a large turnout. So there's great support for what we have accomplished. But at the same time, a certain level of caution is still needed. This was accomplished partially because we do have reopeners on salary. Fixing a dysfunctional salary system, looking at the poor priorities of the last several years and underfunding is a work in progress. We're not finished yet, and there's still some tests to be passed, but we do see this as a road forward for better labor relations, and hopefully it'll be easier with these labor relations to bargain in years 2 and 3 than it was this time. And it should be noted that we bargained a contract in just a little over 10 months, which in the real world may seem like a long time, but it's hyper quick between CFA and CSU over the last 30 years. I want to mention a couple of whats and a couple of whys to explain why we got a contract and why we got the contract as quickly as we did. Among the whats, among the things beyond the salary, which is, after all, just starting to fix a broken system, but there were other accomplishments. There was recognition that the central focus of faculty and students working together, which is the absolute vital part of quality education, is too important, and that no faddish gimmick or no faddish trick or even the proper use of technology can ever substitute for the importance that is the relationship between the students and the faculty. And so recognizing that excessive service, underfunded scholarship, excessive student contact all work against quality education. There are things in this collective bargaining agreement that directly begin to address some of those problems. In addition, there are a lot of indirect things that will help with student-faculty relationships. Progress in areas such as intellectual property, parental leave, sabbaticals, and there was even some greening of the institution involved in some of this contract. All of these things help, and this is a partial list. So those are some of the whats. There's also a couple of examples of why we got this done more quickly. First example is there was an explicit recognition at the table that those faculty who are primarily hired to be teaching faculty are an asset to the California State University, not a cost liability. This meant fixing unfair hiring practices. This meant we didn't have to fight over issues that we have successfully settled over the years, as we have in past contracts. And a final example of why is, while too many politicians of all levels of government have embraced the thinking of that great political philosopher, Tricia Nixon, never to underestimate the politics of fear, and thus we have heard about all of these existential threats to America, including some very real problems in West Africa and West Asia, like Ebola and ISIS, though why they're existential threats to the United States, I'm not so sure. But we've also conflated a benefit and made it one of the great terrorist threats of our time: decent pensions and benefits for public employees, which has become so fashionable to attack. The CSU management did not succumb to this simplistic demagoguery. We didn't have to fight to retain one of the things that is absolutely vital to keep professional people in the CSU. And so if you look at these who's and these what's, it's potentially very promising as we continue to improve our relationship. It isn't perfect, and we're continuing to work on improvement. But we hope that if these tests are made and if this continues, that there will be better labor relationships between the California Faculty Association and the California State University management, and that possibly even negotiations will be smoother when they start up again in the spring. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lillian Tays, please.
Good morning. I think Andy's already mentioned, but as many of you know, bargaining between CSU management and CFA has for many years been lengthy and extremely contentious. I'm pleased to say that this time there were some noticeable improvements in the process. Not only were negotiations completed in record time, but for the first time in anyone's memory, management's proposals did not target segments of our bargaining unit or attempt to short-circuit long-standing, tried and true programs. Indeed, it appeared to us that this administration was making an honest attempt to change its tone and approach. At the bargaining table and publicly, we observed that the administration seemed to be doing some real listening to what our faculty was telling us was essential. We also appreciate that there was a new openness to solving some problems like low pay for Lecturer L that should have been corrected long ago and that were frankly an embarrassment to the institution. Finally, after years of discussion, we welcome the administration's recognition of the need to begin addressing some out-of-control problems like workload. But I would be seriously misleading you to leave you with the impression that all is well and that faculty feel like we did a great job solving problems. In fact, ratification was not a cakewalk. While 91% of those voting supported the agreement, it is very clear from campus electronic and face-to-face discussions that the vast majority of faculty are terribly demoralized and distressingly cynical about the system's commitment to addressing their struggles, paying rent, feeding families, and educating their children on CSU faculty salaries. What happens in the coming months on implementing campus equity and reopening bargaining on salaries for years 2 and 3 will be critical in either reversing or cementing those sentiments. That campus equity programs happen is obviously important to whether faculty feel like they have been dealt with fairly. So is the implementation of these programs. They must be true equity programs that faculty see as even-handed and equitably applied. The way in which other provisions are implemented matter as well. For example, faculty will be watching what presidents do with promotions. Do they use the tools and the discretion the contract provides them to correct problems when they arise? Or do they turn a blind eye and do the minimum the contract requires? I say none of this as a threat, but simply as a fact that every CFA leader knows and hears about every single day. In many ways, this agreement is not the end of a process, but merely the beginning. My hope is that we can look back next year and see the agreement that we are ratifying today as the first concrete move toward restoring faculty morale and rebuilding the salary and working conditions that must exist in the kind of CSU we all hope for. I can assure you statewide CFA and our local chapters are committed to doing what it takes to moving in that direction. We hope the system administration, the campus presidents, and the Board of Trustees will join us on that path.
Thank you very much. It's great to be in this posture. It's been many, many years since this opportunity will have presented itself, and I think everyone takes the opportunity seriously as well as the responsibility. And I think labor leadership has been extraordinary. Campus leadership has been extraordinary. The chancellor's leadership has been extraordinary. And so we're at the point that we're at, which is something to be celebrated. I understand we need to start the process tomorrow, but for today, I just hope that we'll take a breath and smile at one another and recognize that something great for the CSU and our students has been accomplished today. In the event that my colleagues choose to ratify these 4 contracts, we'll take them in 5 contracts, I beg your pardon. We'll take them in turn. Only members of the committee can vote. And once the committee has voted, the contracts are deemed either ratified or rejected. So this is a duty delegated to the committee. Does everybody understand that? Any member of the Board of Trustees can speak, but only committee members can vote. Okay? Very good. Yes, Trustee Day.
Well, thank you, Chair Actenberg. I just wanted to, while I'm not a member of the committee, I'd like to publicly congratulate you and your committee, to our Chancellor, our newest Vice Chancellor, and the whole team. It's glad to hear that there's an improved tenor and treatment of our employees, faculty, and staff. And as a member of the board, I'm honored to be here at a great time that hopefully we won't relive the past and hear some of those horror stories that occurred in the past. But hopefully together we can move forward with our labor friends to collaborate on larger issues such as graduation rates and time to degree and closing that achievement gap. So I want to offer the congratulations as a non-voting committee member, but you've done a great job. Thank you.
Terrific. All right, the ratification of the tentative agreement with the California State University Employees Union is an action item before the Committee on Collective Bargaining. As I mentioned, only committee members may vote. May I have a motion to ratify the collective bargaining?
So moved.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the contract is ratified. The ratification of the tentative agreement with California State University Employees Union. The ratification of the tentative agreement, I beg your pardon. So may I have a motion?
So moved. So moved.
All right, seconded.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The contract is ratified. The ratification of the tentative agreement with the academic professionals of California is also an action item. Only committee members may vote. May I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The contract is ratified. Next, we have the ratification of the tentative agreement with the, is it next, the academic, we did the academic professionals, right?
We just did.
We just did that, I beg your pardon. Next we have the State Trades Council, State Employees Trades Council. The ratification of the tentative agreement with the State Employees Trades Council is an action item. May I have a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? We'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Next, we have the ratification of the tentative agreement with the California Faculty Association. This is an action item. May I have a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The tentative agreement is ratified. And finally, I believe, the final contract is the ratification of the tentative agreement with the International Union of Operating Engineers. This is an action item.
So moved.
It's been moved.
Second.
And seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is adopted and the contract is ratified. I want to thank everyone for their excellent work. I want to express again my appreciation for the leadership of the bargaining units and for the leadership from the Chancellor's Office team. And I want to turn it now that everything has gone beautifully and flawlessly, I'm out of here. So, Chair Monville, that concludes the deliberations of the Committee on Collective Bargaining.
Chancellor, any comments?
Well, thank you, Chair Monville and Chair Achtenberg. Listening to Susan Smith's comments about some of the banter that occurs in these sausage-making sessions that we call bargaining, and seeing Andy Merrifield's shirt reminds me that in this process, sometimes we're the ball and sometimes we're the bat. But today, I think we can all be San Francisco Giants.
Yes.
With apologies to all the Southern California fans.
Did you see I couldn't wait?
Seriously, to thank the trustees for providing authority for us to craft solutions that have now been ratified. And these are solutions for our faculty and staff, and I'm pleased we're making progress, because when we make progress with our employees, we're making progress for our students, and we're making progress for California's future. I'd like to thank personally the bargaining units, the leaders and their team members, and recognize, of course, that these are our faculty and our staff that are at the table. And the process occurred during a transition of the vice presidency, vice chancellorship here in this building. So Gail Brooks was here at the beginning of the conversations and has retired, and Lori Lamb is now the new appointee. But along the way during the transition, I think the record needs to be clear that Fran Vergy and Jessica Darren became sort of tag team to help keep us together during the transition. And of course, the glue through it all from beginning to end and over the years has been John Swarbrick and his analytical and bargaining team members. And so I think we ought to tip our hats to those who did the heavy lifting in the trenches for bargaining units and for the university. I also feel compelled to just share my personal opinions on managing expectations going forward. Today is a day to be celebratory and to be grateful, but we have to be realistic as well. Campuses are doing and will do the analytical work and within their capacity and the multitude of the needs and priorities and circumstances, make decisions on their campuses and the timelines in which to execute those decisions. Let's not lose track of the fact that the Chancellor's Office and the campuses, indeed the CSU, remain recovering from a very deep and prolonged recession. We remain resource constrained, particularly when you look at the needs of our talent asset, in other words, our employees. And when we look at the needs of the state for a more educated society to meet this looming degree deficit. It goes without saying that when we are in a situation like this where we get, as we have this year, a 5% state appropriation increase with 0% tuition adjustment, that really is a 2.5% increase to our operating budget. And so while we celebrate moving forward with state appropriation, we have to add up the dollars, and we can only spend them once. I guess I finished by just saying it has taken time for California to go through a recession and for the CSU to have been hurt by that recession, as have so many other entities in the state of California, public and private. It will also take time to dig out. And this step that you have taken today is a good, important step in the right direction. But we have to be mindful that we have a ways to go, and it will take us time to get there. But again, my heartfelt thanks to all involved.
Thank you, Chancellor. Thank you, Chair Actenberg. I will just add here, and great work all around. With that, Trustee Fagan, if you would please convene the Committee on Governmental Relations.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to call the Committee on Governmental Relations to order. On today's agenda, we have one consent item and one information item. The consent item is the approval of the September 9th, 2014 meeting minutes. If there are no changes or objections, minutes are approved as submitted. The next item on the agenda is a two-part informational item, the first of which is a brief overview of final outcomes for the 2013-14 legislative session. In addition, we will get a review of the recent election and what it means for the California State University system. Vice Chancellor Garrett Ashley, please introduce the item.
Thank you, Trustee Fagan. The governor officially concluded the 2013-14 legislative session on September 30 with final action on some 900 bills. Those bills were among the thousands that worked their way through the legislative process. Of those numerous bills, the California State University took a position on 13 top priorities, and the CSU's position prevailed in every case but one. I'd like to take a moment to recognize the tremendous effort of CSU advocates in Sacramento in partnership with students, faculty, staff, legislative champions, and external partners. We made great strides in raising the CSU's profile in Sacramento while highlighting critical needs and opportunities. We will build on these efforts to advance the budget request and legislative agenda in the upcoming session. Assistant Vice Chancellor Karen Zamaripa is here to provide a brief update on the last legislative session to provide a look ahead for 2015. My thanks again to Karen and her team for all of their work this year. Karen.
Thank you. Good morning. I know I'm the difference between eating and the report, so I will try to do my best here. Today I wanted to give you our view of what I'm referring to as post-2014. The conclusion of the 2014 legislative session, last week's election, and looking forward with initial views about opportunities for CSU in the new year. The 2014 legislative session is over and final outcomes are in your written report. In short, as Assistant Vice Chancellor Ashley indicated, we were successful across the board, not only with our sponsored bills, with legislative matters that were important to the CSU and to the campuses. While we'd like to say that we batted 1,000 or that we were part of the 49 or the Giants team, we regretfully did lose one battle, and that was our bid for the one-time money for deferred maintenance that we lost with the stroke of the blue pencil. But I'd still say overall, you all did a great job. The impact of the election last week will really be the topic for most of us that watch this stuff for the next several weeks, if not months. But we wanted to give you a 100-foot level view for context as we develop short and long-term strategic initiatives for our students and system. Next slide, please. There were several issues that the voters decided upon last week, and in particular, two propositions that were critical for the state and in turn the CSU. The first was Proposition 1, the water bond. Approved by the voters, we now have made a $7 billion investment in our water infrastructure, including storage and groundwater management. Within the amount of the $7 billion, 1.7 is dedicated to water quality and does give CSU a continued opportunity to assist the state using the expertise of our faculty, staff, and students, as well as giving our students applied learning opportunities that will make them invaluable human capital. We have much to offer the state in this regard and have already begun conversations to do so via the Water Research Policy Institute, which is housed at CSU San Bernardino but involves many of your campuses. Proposition 2 was the second initiative which also passed and aims to strengthen the state's rainy day fund. This measure was the result of negotiations between Governor Brown and the legislature earlier this summer, and it's to save for a rainy day for the state overall, but also to invest in buying down debt and prevent future actions to dedicate short-term dollars to long-term expenditures. But specifically for our interest, the proposition dedicates between $800 million to $2 billion towards debt payments and establishes a specific reserve cap for K-12 or community colleges. We are currently exploring for the CSU whether these one-time dollars would be available for our ongoing debts and past debts as it relates to your capital investment and one-time revenues that might be available for future infrastructure needs. Next slide. Of course, we were also electing members of the legislature, both at the legislative level, but also at local and federal. I'll just speak to, obviously, the state. Let's start by saying, of course, Governor Brown, fourth term, overwhelming support by the voters of California. We also have all statewide officers are now held by Democrats, although I think there are probably a couple of them that thought it was a little tighter initially than they expected. All ultimately prevailed. The Democrats also remain a majority in both houses, but neither house has the magic supermajority. Now, while we don't need a 2/3 vote for budgets anymore, those supermajorities are pretty significant for lots of other things, and obviously was a goal for the legislative leadership in both houses. For the CSU specifically, the outcome was that we lost 2 members of the Higher Ed Committee, 2 incumbents that were not reelected, and we also regretfully lost the chair of our budget subcommittee. So we have already some work to do as it relates to new members being in key roles of importance to CSU, and who those will be in the future will be important. We also lost one of our best champions in the Senate when Lou Correa was termed out from Orange County. We still have 4 assembly races that are still up in the air, and there are 3 congressional races, many of which you probably know about. We do expect a couple of recounts before it's over, and we can expect at minimum 4 special elections, 1 this fall and 3 in the spring, with people moving from the legislature to the congressional level of government. Overall, we have 37 of the 120 members that are brand new in the legislature. And 72 of the 120 have less than 4 years experience in working in the legislative arena. So we have a particularly challenging time and an opportunity with a lot of new members interested, we hope, in working with CSU. Next slide. One factor we continue and always assess is how, one factor that we are continuing to assess as it relates to the election is where legislators come from. Were they elected prior to their service in the legislature, and if so, where? From our perspective, it's relevant because if they've been public officials, certainly we hope they bring an understanding of governance and the role of how to work together to get things done. We also believe that depending on where they come from, each has a perspective or an interest in issues, if not expertise, that they may continue to focus on during their legislative service. So for example, if they come from county government, they are likely to have more interest in healthcare and social services, areas which are a growing part, if not the fastest growing part of the state budget. If they came from city councils, they've probably dealt with infrastructure like you have, but also public safety and transportation. And of course, if they've come from K-12 community colleges, they are very well versed in Prop 98 and bring with them a knowledge and a focus on those issues. This also reminds us of the important work that our campus presidents are doing to educate and engage community leaders even before they become future legislators. Understanding the role of their campuses in their community and economic growth and strength, the educational opportunities they bring, and the quality of life to the constituents that they serve, we hope gives us the basis of future champions. What you see here is that 52 of the new members, or 52 of the members of the legislature of 120, have come from city councils. And you see the other numbers. I think it's an opportunity based on their relationship with their campuses, but it's also obviously a learning curve. We've met with several members already that are the first to admit that they've not really paid attention to the education side of the house, don't really know how the budget works, and are looking forward to learning from us and others. We are also always asked, next slide, is how many alumni are serving in the legislature from the CSU? And so anticipating the question, we put this together. I will put the caveat that this is preliminary because we still have a few races yet to be decided, and there are a few that are in the other category that we're still trying to determine. But what you can see here is that we still have about 40 or so members of the 120 member legislature that are graduates of the CSU, either in their undergrad, their master's degree, and in many cases their teaching credential. And you can see the other numbers. It is an interesting phenomenon. In the other category are those that attended private institutions, out-of-state institutions, or did not benefit from seeking a post-secondary education to completion of a certificate or degree. Nationally, we also see this, that there is this more very growing number of folks that are coming from private institutions as it relates to their experience, and in many cases, pretty elite institutions. That's good and bad in the sense of educating them about how CSU is different from those institutions, how our students are different than those institutions, and what it takes in order to get our students from admission to success. Next slide. I just quickly wanted to let you ponder the future leaders, the leaders in the Assembly and the Senate, and give you a context of our relationship with them. First, of course, you know that Toni Atkins is the Speaker of the Assembly and a member of this board, and we're very excited to have her join you, and she does intend to be here tomorrow. But what's important is prior to her service, Ms. Atkins worked in city government and understands the role of the campus in the local communities that she represented, based on her longstanding relationship with San Diego State. She has a clear passion for access and success, and I think we're very excited to finding ways to respond to her needs and interests, but also translating that into investing in the CSU. She has 2 members of her leadership team, as I've indicated here, that were created by departing members, and obviously those will be significant players in her team as she works with a freshman and sophomore class that makes up 2/3 of her House. The freshmen and sophomores in the Assembly now make 2/3 of her House. Next slide. And here is the Republican leadership. While I appreciate that many are not really always clear about how, quote, the minority party plays, I do think that what's very important here is that Kristen Olson is an alum and a very dedicated supporter of CSU, and in particular, her campus, CSU Stanislaus. She gets it, she wants to support us, and has been committed to the CSU since the moment she was elected to the Assembly. But it's also noteworthy that, like her colleague, Ms. Atkins, she has a strong connection to her campus, but also wants to engage all members, both sides of the aisle, in trying to impact policy and fiscal decisions. And recent changes, I think, in the staff that were announced in the press this week are indicative of her interest in trying to reach across the aisle and work collaboratively. Next slide. We also have Senate Pro Tem Kevin De Leon, who, as you know, has already taken his leadership role, and he also has some significant leadership positions to fill, not the least of which is the Appropriations Chair, which is a significant player in the budget process. You know, he is not a graduate of the CSU, but he's certainly a perfect example of the value of higher education. And as a son of a single parent who found his way to a different and impactful life through college, he frequently notes that that was life-changing for him. And it's clear that access and opportunity will be a priority, and we need to continue to make sure he's clear that that is the CSU. Next slide. And last but not least is Senate Republican leader Bob Huff. And he has had a solid team. It's pretty stable. There'll be a couple of changes because of Steve Knight's departure from the Senate and some special elections, as I mentioned earlier. I think what's worth noting about Bob Huff, besides his relationships with members of our board, he serves on only one committee. And it's not common for a Republican leader to choose to serve on a policy committee. It's not been his style. He has specifically requested the Education Committee because of his passion for K-12 and higher education. And I do think, again, a leader that's interested in what we are trying to do. What I hope you see here is that we have 4 leaders, all of whom have a connection to CSU or understand the value of a quality higher education and the need to keep the doors open. We also have leaders that are going to allow, support, and empower their members to lead on policy and fiscal matters, and that is a significant shift from where we've been. This gives us a chance to impact outcomes to our benefit with a handful of members who are strong, thoughtful, passionate, and well-prepared advocates within both caucuses. Finally, we have new and remaining members that are working with the governor and are interested in improving for Californians and our campuses. Now it's really up to us to strengthen those connections between our elected officials and our campuses and translate for policymakers the role we play in serving Californians and our diverse communities. So, next slide. As we look forward, I think that the opportunities ahead for CSU to not only continue to demonstrate our value to the students that we're serving, but also to strengthen our partnerships with Governor Brown and with policy leaders have many other issues on their plate that CSU can participate in helping. Some of those, obviously, is that we're already providing major proportions of workforce needs to create, build, and manage our infrastructure, but we have more opportunities to help in the implementation of the water bond and the future investments in high-speed rail. CSU is also at the forefront of implementing the Common Core standards in K-12, which is going to make significant changes as it relates to how we support and prepare students in K-12, and we've been a strong partner with the governor in implementation of that. I share these just as 2 examples of how we need to continue to work in emphasizing the partnership. It's not just that we need them, it's also we want to serve them and help them serve their constituents and the people of the state. And it's to our benefit to continue to emphasize that particular role that our faculty, our graduates, our students, our staff, and others are contributing today. Looking forward, I think I have one more slide. I do. Last slide, please. Looking forward, we know we have challenges ahead, as the Chancellor indicated just a few moments ago, but we also have opportunities that we can and should take advantage of as we move into this new session. The following themes have evolved as areas based on feedback from campus presidents and their leadership teams, system colleagues, legislative friends, and leaders. 1, we need to continue to develop and deliver student access and completion. That is our core commitment, and it's worth the investment from the state of California, not only for the students themselves, for us all. Second, that CSU is has a high impact on workforce and job creation, and we're critical to the state's future in that regard. Third, that we serve the state's population. We are California as it relates to the diversity and providing equal opportunity, and we need to keep emphasizing and reminding people of that. And lastly, CSU is and will continue to be a partner with the governor, legislators, state and local communities to serve California. With that, Mr. Chair, I've completed my report.
Thank you very much, Karen, for that complete report. Gives us a lot of information. That concludes the work of the Governmental Relations Committee.
Great. I want to be sensitive to time. Well, you have Karen. Are there any questions? In case there were any questions of Karen, I wanted to offer that opportunity. Otherwise, hearing none, back to Karen's astute observation. I think we've worked awfully hard this morning. I'm thinking that my colleagues might like to eat. So with that, I will recess the board, and we will reconvene at 1 p.m. So we will reconvene at 1 p.m. So we'll recess for lunch. Thank you all.
California State University Office of the Chancellor's live stream. Please adjust your audio accordingly. This is the California State University Office of the Chancellor's live stream. Please adjust your audio accordingly. This is the California State University Office of the Chancellor's live stream. Please adjust your audio accordingly. This is the California State University Office of the Chancellor's live stream. Please adjust your audio accordingly. This is the California State University Office of the Chancellor's live stream. Please adjust your audio accordingly. This is the California State University Office of the Chancellor's live stream. Please adjust your audio accordingly. This is the California State University Office of the Chancellor's live stream. Please adjust your audio accordingly. This is the California State University Office of the Chancellor's live stream. Please adjust your audio accordingly. This is the California State University Office of the Chancellor's live stream. Please adjust your audio accordingly. This is the California State University Office of the Chancellor's live stream. Please adjust your audio accordingly. This is the California State University Office of the Chancellor's live stream. Please adjust your audio accordingly. This is the California State University Office of the Chancellor's live stream. Please adjust your audio accordingly. This is the California State University Office of the Chancellor's live stream. Please adjust your audio accordingly.